Hello again, and talk about active participation. Wow. Now my guest is Sue Frankie, who is our lead social worker here in the Village Square area. Is that correct, Sue?
I am the lead social worker for the independent living residents, but then I am also the social worker for the Village Square area.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and I am here to talk about preventing falls. It's been a while since I've had the opportunity just to talk about ways that as a community and individually we might be able to help prevent those falls.
I'm so glad that you're on, because the prevention of falls is a so important subject that we could talk about it every day and it still wouldn't be enough, especially at our age.
That's right, that's right. And it's one of those things where in each and everything that you do every day, you really have to be very aware and to be thinking about how you can help prevent those falls. I think one of the biggest things for the summertime, and as we watched all of those very active dancers, is to make sure, especially this time of year, but all year long, is to stay hydrated. That is a big factor. And one of the things I've found most interesting in the literature that I've read is that as we age, just like everything else that sort of slows down, the receptors to thirst also slow down. And so as we get older, the ability to sense when we are thirsty is not always as poignant as it has been in other times of our lives. So our body may need water and hydration, and we might not be aware of it. So I think one of the big things to remember is that you need to be drinking at regular intervals throughout the day.
Do you have a figure Bob Zykowitz should drink 8, 10, 1, whatever it is, glasses of water per day?
I don't. I know that there are different ideas about how much you should be drinking throughout the day. I think it's just important to be drinking throughout the day. I don't think you have to really strive for a certain amount, because if you drink too much, then you can mess your electrolytes up also. But I would say just to be aware of how often you're drinking, and make sure that you drink a cup in the morning, a cup midday, a cup at lunch, just to make sure that you're drinking in intervals. And I think the other piece too, I've heard residents say that they won't eat for long stretches of time. You have your main meal at dinner, but it's important when you first get up in the morning to make sure that you have a light meal of something.
I agree.
Just to get your everything balanced out, to make sure that your body has enough energy, that food is energy for your body, to be able to function at its optimal position.
I have heard dietitians say that breakfast is your most important meal.
And they definitely say that it is an important meal, because you've been without food for such a long period of time, and you look to getting up and doing some activities. So to be able to give your body that energy to be able to get up and get going and do the activities is really very important.
Speaking of getting up, the thought in my mind, here we are in summertime, it's warm or hot. Should people avoid these flip-flops?
And that's a really good thought. And one of the big pieces in terms of preventing falls, or one of the important factors in terms of preventing falls, is shoes. During the summertime, flip-flops really are a fall hazard, most definitely. And even in terms of the sandals or shoes without back, the recommendation is to have a shoe that covers your whole foot to include the back of your foot.
With a strap of some sort?
With a strap or the whole shoe that covers the back, because then you know that your shoe's going to stay on your foot.
Okay.
When it doesn't have a back, even in terms of slippers, where the slipper doesn't have a back to it, it's highly encouraged. Interestingly enough, too, in terms of preventing falls, it is highly recommended that you wear shoes at all times. Shoes actually balance out the weight on your feet, and so it is really not recommended that you go barefoot in your apartment or anywhere, and certainly not to go in socks in your apartment, because that can be a slip hazard, especially if you have hardwood floors.
That's a good point to remember.
Yeah, do try to wear shoes at all times, and then the idea is to wear well-fitting shoes that are comfortable. And what goes along with that then, Bob, also is to maintain your feet. If your feet hurt, or if you find that you're having problems with your feet, it can put you at risk for falls, because then you might favor a foot, or you might change the way you walk just a little bit to adjust to a pain. So we're fortunate here to have a podiatrist on staff at the medical center. So make sure that you're taking care of your feet in that way. Very important.
You took the words right out of my mouth, that we do have this excellent podiatrist. I guess he's down in the lower level over there in the town center area. But if anybody feels any kind of pain in their feet, they should consult with a doctor. One of the things that I think about is I have heard in the past where some people have, I'm going to use the word loosely, stubbed their toe on the rug and down they go. And I know of 2 instances in years gone by where that has happened, and one lady injured her pelvic area. So how do we prevent something like that from happening?
I think sometimes incidents like that happen when we're hurrying. I've heard a number of times where someone was hurrying to pick up the phone in particular, or to get the door, or they're late for an appointment, so they're rushing around. So sometimes it can be due to inattention. You're just not quite paying attention to what you're doing, and so that can cause an accident. I think there are other circumstances, especially in the apartment, where it would be helpful and beneficial for somebody to use an assistive device, like a walker or a cane, and you feel a sense of security in the apartment, so you might not. So it's really recognizing the fact that an assistive device would be more stabilizing, and that can help prevent a fall. But then also, even when you're feeling like you're rushed, to make sure you take the time to prevent those falls. And I've talked about this before. We grew up in an era where there were no answering machines. So when the phone rang, if you did not get to the phone, you missed that call. We're in a totally different era now. If you miss the phone, the answering machine goes on. You always hear who it is if they have something important to say. Take your time. And if somebody's at the door, all you need to do is yell, "I'm coming." And people are very patient and will wait in that way. So that's a good thought.
You bring up some good points, and you also reminded me, one of the things that has come out of your office is if you have a loose rug in your apartment, be especially careful. I don't mean the wall-to-wall carpeting, just a carpet on top of a carpet. You got to watch out for those.
And they sell double-stick carpet tape at places like Home Depot, Lowe's. So anybody that's putting a rug down on top of either hardwood or a rug to get that double stick tape so that they know that the carpet is secure, because for one thing, you might trip on the edge. The other thing is sometimes they tend to walk, or bunch, and so the rug itself will have sort of a mound that makes it more susceptible to tripping over. And then the other piece we've talked about, making sure our feet feel good, it's the eyes. Our eyes, as we get older, let in less light. So our thirst diminishes, our feet become more of a problem, our eyes let less light in. So it's very important to make sure that at night you have, when it's dark out, make sure you have nice bright lights. During the daytime, you have enough light to be able to see easily. But then in the middle of the night, when you get up to go to the bathroom, there's a lot of activity-activated lights. So if you don't like to have a night light on, you can actually get these lights that come on when they sense movement, motion-sensed lights, especially for people that are going through their closets to get to the bathroom. But those, it's important to have light when you're walking from one place to the other, just for the mere fact that our eyes really don't adapt to the low lights as well as they used to.
So you have brought out some very important pieces of information. And on behalf of the viewer, I thank you, both for bringing out all this information and for taking the time out to come with us today and
my pleasure.
chat with us.
My pleasure.